L24 midnight news coming to you live from Algiers. To the headlines. Algeria and neighboring Mali are looking forward to revive the 2015 peace agreement between Bamako and northern Malian rebels that today lies in limbo, raising fears of renewed violence. The BRICS deputy foreign ministers emphasized the need to achieve an enduring and mutually acceptable political solution to the question of Western Sahara. And following the phone call that Chinese president and his Ukrainian counterpart held, EU welcomes China's first step toward mediation between Kiev and Moscow. And Algeria officially received the original copy of the certificate confirming the inclusion of Rai music as an Algerian cultural heritage. Hello again and welcome. As part of his working visit to the Republic of Niger in his capacity as a special representative of the President of the Republic, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, held a working session with his Niger counterpart, Sam Hassoumi Masoudi, devoted to promoting prospects for strengthening bilateral relations, coordination and consultation around regional and international issues of common interest. Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf delivered a written letter from Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to the head of the state of Mali, President of the transitional government Assimi Goïta, which included a number of issues of mutual interest between the two countries. This came during the Algerian Foreign Minister reception by Mr. Goïta on Wednesday as part of Mr. Attaf's working visit to the Republic of Mali in his capacity as a special envoy to the Algerian President.
Il s'agit de quatre messages essentiels. Le premier message concerne
I arrived in Mali carrying 4 messages. The first is related to the ongoing political reform in Mali, which should lead to a referendum and elections. We all hope for the success of this process.
And in order to secure the Malian territorial integrity, Algeria is seeking to speed up the implementation of peace and reconciliation agreements in Mali stemming from Algiers' process.
In order to support Malians and their territorial integrity in the face of escalating internal and external threats, Algeria is stepping up diplomatic efforts to carry out the provisions of the Bamako Peace and Reconciliation Agreement. During his visit to Mali as President Abdelmajid Tebboune's special envoy, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf did not fall short on convincing the Malian authorities of the significance of implementing the peace and reconciliation path emanating from the Algeria track, which had been signed between the Bamako government and representatives of a number of political movements.
We discussed
the safe implementation of the Algiers Peace and Reconciliation Agreement, in particular determining the conditions that must be met for the effective and efficient revival of the agreement.
Algeria shares the same security concerns as the nations of the region, since it is aware that the success of political settlements and reconciliation efforts in Mali also rely on the elimination of the impact of terrorist organizations in the Sahel region.
Message du président Tebboune à l'adresse.
The third message that I carried from President Tebboune to President Assimi Goïta is security concerns in the Sahel region. We believe that we share the same concern and the same awareness of the danger about the security situation in the Sahel region. Effective bilateral cooperation exists between us with our friends and brothers in Mali to readapt the multilateral framework to confront insecurity and stability in the region.
Mali is undergoing a crucial period of transition in its history, one from which it will not emerge peacefully without consensus between its components, which is why Algeria is making intense efforts to hasten the implementation of peace and reconciliation agreement in the country.
Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf stressed that President Tebboune shares the responsibility of evaluating cooperation between Algeria and Mali, which has witnessed intense movement over the past few years in several vital areas.
Message concerné.
Our second message is related to bilateral cooperation. President Tebboune shares the responsibility of evaluating this cooperation, and he is convinced of that. This cooperation has gained intensity over the past few years, and he feels that we have laid the first stone for a promising cooperation in all the economic fields that we have now identified, especially hydrocarbons, mobile communications, banking system, academic and vocational training. There are several promising projects for this Algerian financial cooperation.
Cette coopération algéro-malienne.
The Algerian ambassador to Rome, Abdelkarim Touahria, was received Thursday morning by Italian Defense Minister Guido Grosseto. The Algerian embassy stated a tweet that during the meeting, the two sides discussed ways to enhance bilateral cooperation in the field of defense and military industry, not to mention the security situation in the Sahel region and the Mediterranean Sea. Member states of BRICS bloc have affirmed their full support for the implementation by the United Nations Mission for Western Sahara MINURSO of self-determination and referendum in these occupied territories. Mohammed Khatou.
Deputy Foreign Ministers and Special Envoys for the Middle East and North Africa of the BRICS countries expressed their support for the full implementation of the mandate of the United Nations mission to organize a referendum in Western Sahara, the last colony in the African continent. Deputy Foreign Ministers and Special Envoys for the Middle East and North Africa of the BRICS bloc met in Cape Town to discuss the peace process and ways and means to establish it in the occupied territories, with a special emphasis laid on the importance of the MINURSO's role in organizing a self-determination referendum in Western Sahara.
Colleagues, BRICS must continue to prioritize regional and continental peace and stability, security and development as the main component towards contributing to a peaceful and just global order. In this regard, we should support the need to achieve an enduring and mutually acceptable political solution to the question of Western Sahara in accordance with the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. We must express our support to the full implementation of the UN mission for the referendum in the Western Sahara.
Regional crises should be resolved exclusively through political and diplomatic dialogue based on unconditional respect for the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of all countries of the Middle East and North Africa.
The right to self-determination of the Sahrawi people and the independence of the rest of their occupied territories is not a concern for the Sahrawis alone, but for many regional and international organizations which seek to support the implementation of the UN resolutions aimed at putting an end to all forms of occupation.
The Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, and the Syrian Minister of Oil and Mineral Resources, Firas Hassan Qaddour, expressed the two countries' common will to enhance their cooperation in many areas of common interest during a meeting held at headquarters of the Algerian Energy Ministry. The two ministers reviewed cooperation and investment opportunities between the countries in the energy and hydrocarbon sector and expressed the will of the leadership of both countries to enhance cooperation relations to the level of the historic political relations.
During our meeting today, we tackled several fields and prospects of cooperation and partnership between Algeria and brotherly Syria in various fields related to hydrocarbons, energy and mines to develop an Algerian-Syrian partnership that lives up to the level of the historic and brotherly relations that link the two countries. Together, we established a plan of action setting priorities for the cooperation and partnership in all these fields, and there will be working groups that will develop and audit these fields on the short and medium run.
على المدى القصير والمتوسط.
بناء على توجيهات من القيادتين.
There are orientations from the political leadership of both Syria and Algeria to strengthen cooperation relations between the two countries, especially in the fields of energy and hydrocarbon, in order to enhance them to the level of the political relations and to meet the people's needs in both countries.
تحقيق رغبات الشعبين في البلدين الشقيقين.
Meanwhile, the CEO of the Algerian Sonatrach Group, Tawfiq Hakkar, received the Syrian Minister of Oil and Mineral Resources, Firas Hassan Qaddour. The meeting was an opportunity for the Syrian side to discuss cooperation opportunities with Sonatrach in the hydrocarbon sector, especially in the fields of research and exploration for oil and gas, marketing of petroleum products, and exchange of experiences and training. In Africa still, the Tunisian presidency announced on Thursday that Tunisia has officially appointed its new ambassador to Syria. A statement from the presidency said that the new ambassador, Mohammed Al-Mudhabi, has been sworn in as he handed over credentials as the new envoy to Damascus. Renewed fighting erupted on the last day of the fourth truce between Sudanese army and the rapid support forces, with armed clashes breaking out in several areas of the capital, Al-Khartoum. Hussein Barkan.
Despite four truces being announced, the Sudanese army and rapid support forces have continued with hit-and-run battles, with each side trying to impose control over the field. The latest clashes on the last day of the fourth truce centered around the presidential palace in Khartoum and in Khartoum North, while heavy weapons clashes erupted in Jenin, West Darfur. International efforts are ongoing to push both sides to negotiate and avoid a civil war, but the two parties brought military reinforcement to the capital, indicating an escalation of hostilities. The fighting has been ongoing for 12 days, resulting in a high number of casualties, with the Ministry of Health in Sudan reporting over 500 dead and more than 4,000 wounded. The health situation in the country is on the verge of catastrophe due to the escalation of violence, with hospitals caught in crossfire.
69% of hospitals in our confined areas of clashes are out of service. Out of 86 basic hospitals in the capital and the states, 60 hospitals are out of service, 14 hospitals were bombed, and 19 hospitals were subjected to forced eviction.
Doctors Without Borders also expressed concerns over the shortage of medicine and medical supplies due to the ongoing fighting. The Sudanese fear that the war will widen and prolong as the high levels of tension between the two parties persist, both insisting on a military settlement.
As fighting rages in Sudan and the number of displaced people is still rising, neighboring Chad is now faced with an influx of migrants forced to leave that country. Chad is hosting more than 1 million refugees, including nearly 400,000 Sudanese people. The African country fears the conflict between rival army generals will pile more pressure on its limited resources. On Thursday evening, a Palestinian was shot dead by the Zionist occupation forces, claiming he was trying to carry out a run-over operation targeting a member of occupation forces in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Ministry of Health said in a statement that Ahmed Yaqub Taha, 39, was killed by the occupation forces after being hit by a hail of bullets, adding that occupation soldiers prevented ambulances from reaching him and let him bleed in until he died. During the phone call between the Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, this comes 2 months after China proposed a 12-point position paper to solve the crisis in Ukraine. Nabil Khazini.
It took them exactly 1 year, 2 months, and 2 days to talk. The long-awaited exchange between Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky has drawn a remarkable attention in the last days. For so long, Beijing has avoided to get involved in conflicts between other countries, and now the Chinese diplomacy has proven itself to be a reliable intermediate of multilateral dialogue after its success to mediate and make a surprise rapprochement between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Iran. The turn at the moment is for Ukraine. China says it wants peace as soon as possible in the war-torn Eastern European country. President Xi said he will send a delegation to Ukraine to hold talks with all parties on resolving the conflict there.
Since the full-scale escalation of the Ukraine crisis, China has always voiced for peace and tried its best for peace talks. This is plain to all of the international community. China's position can be summed up in one sentence, that is to promote peace talks. China will continue to play a constructive role in the political settlement of the Ukrainian crisis.
Beijing has remained neutral on the conflict, but showed efforts to resolve the crisis. In February, China released a 12-point position paper on the conflict in Ukraine, which includes respecting the sovereignty of all countries, abandoning the Cold War mentality, ceasing hostilities and stopping unilateral sanctions. NATO, seen by Moscow as a reason for the conflict in Ukraine, welcomed these Chinese efforts to extinguish the fire of war.
I welcome the call between President Zelensky and President Xi. I think it's important also that China gets a better understanding of the Ukrainian perspectives. This doesn't change the fact that China has not been able to condemn Russia's illegal war, illegal invasion of Ukraine.
The Chinese mediation in Ukraine is seen as a hope and a step forward to peace. The European Union calls it a possible end to the war. President Zelensky says China's mediation is a positive step, yet it shouldn't be overestimated.
Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that her country does not intend to take the path of nuclear escalation in light of its crisis with the west of Ukraine, but she advised others not to test Moscow's patience. Zakharova, in a regular press conference, strongly criticized the West's supply of weapons to Ukraine and the expansion of NATO near its borders. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, during his virtual address to the first nuclear plant ceremony, thanked his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin for his support on this nuclear plant construction, saying that Turkey has joined the League of countries with nuclear power after a 60-year delay. Turkey's first nuclear power plant, Akkuyu, has been officially granted nuclear facility status with the delivery of the first nuclear fuel to the plant site. Within the same meeting, UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi warned about Zaporizhzhia power plant in Ukraine and urged world leaders to prevent any possible accidents.
We are witnessing the transfer of nuclear fuels to the field, which is the final stage before the Akkuyu nuclear power plant goes into production. With the delivery of nuclear fuel to our power plant by air and sea, Akkuyu has now gained the identity of a nuclear facility. Thus, our country has risen to the League of countries with nuclear power in the world after a 60-year delay.
From nuclear power plants, only good things should come. And this is why, on this celebratory occasion, I must say that we need the international support. We need everybody's support to make sure that no nuclear accident will emanate from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed Thursday a ceremony marking fuel delivery to Turkey's first nuclear power plant, Akkuyu, via video link. The Russian leader hailed the project as an example of cooperation and partnership between Russia and Turkey.
The Akkuyu nuclear power plant brings both mutual economic benefits and, of course, helps to strengthen the multifaceted partnership between our two states, which is based on the principles of good neighborliness, mutual respect, and taking into account each other's interests.
Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC warned of impact of the decline in investment in the hydrocarbon sector on global energy security. The organization, in a statement issued Thursday in response to the criticism of the International Energy Agency, confirmed that the oil cartel or the OPEC Plus group do not target a specific price for a barrel of oil, but rather focus on the market and investments, noting that there are other markets that are more volatile than the oil market.
In response to recent comments from the International Energy Agency, which criticizes OPEC and OPEC Plus, we reiterate that we don't target oil prices, but rather focus on market fundamentals and securing vital investment in oil, the industry that the world desperately needs. Blaming oil for inflation is wrong and technically incorrect, because there are many other factors that cause inflation.
In the same line of thought, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak confirmed that OPEC Plus alliance does not see a need for an additional reduction in oil production, but added that the group is able to adjust its policy.
We don't need to make more cuts in production in light of the decline in oil prices, because we made a decision related to the reduction a month ago. It is the decision that will be implemented by the countries that have taken it, as of next May. The recovery in oil demand in China in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic was likely less than what analysts and experts expected, so the market is balanced.
On Thursday, the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs received the original copy of Certificate of Rai Inclusion as an Algerian heritage in the UNESCO list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. More in this report.
After the Algerian popular musical genre Rai has been included in the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity by the UNESCO in December 2022, Algeria was awarded this Thursday the certificate of this registration.
Algeria Rai is a veritable cultural expression, not only in Algeria but also in North Africa and around the world. Rai is the new Algerian element entering the list of the intangible heritage of the UNESCO. This reflects the richness and depth of Algerian culture and identity, especially in its continental dimension.
Documenting the Rai song as an Algerian heritage is what the country sought in order to preserve the Algerian heritage and history from being forged.
Je suis extrêmement honoré, disais-je, de recevoir aujourd'hui l'original.
I am extremely honored today to receive the original certificate of registration of Rai, which is in the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity established by UNESCO RIE, thus acquires through this prestigious and well-deserved certificate its respectuous excellence, which allowed this popular music that draws its origins from the Sheikh of Bedouin music to impose itself as an essential element of cultural heritage.
Incontournable de notre patrimoine culturel.
Rai appeared in rural Bedouin circles in western Algeria, notably in Sidi Bel Abbas. It became known in cities after independence, notably in Oran, where it succeeded in emerging as a world art with the help of an audience of singers like Sheikha Rimiti, Shab Mami, and Shab Hasni, along with other famous names.
Le Rai a connu une évolution constante.
The Algerian Rai has experienced a constant evolution over the years and has above all been able to modernize and adapt. The Rai Festival in 1985 gave a real impetus to this music that has since conquered the whole world.
With the UNESCO certificate, Algeria demonstrates the Algerian genesis of this popular music forever.
On the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the declaration of Tipaza as World Heritage Site, UNESCO in 1982, an exhibition of an Algerian-Spanish archaeological project has been organized at the Cervantes Institute of Algiers under the title of Tipaza, an archaeological look on Algerian coast, presented by archaeologist Jesus Garcia Sanchez.
The exhibition that we inaugurated today shows the work carried out by our Spanish institutions in collaboration with our Algerian colleagues from the University Morsli Abdullah of Tipaza. The study of the ancient Roman city was conducted in 3 phases, namely the dangers that the Roman city could suffer from in the Mediterranean area, how to plan this work, what are the main findings, and how to discover the different Roman processes from a North African perspective.
And to close our news bulletin, CAF have received a declaration of interest from 6 countries in the bidding process to select the host nation for the Africa Cup of Nations 2027. At the expiry of the deadline set by the administration, CAF recorded 4 bids from 6 countries, namely Algeria, Botswana, Egypt, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania in joint bid. It's worth mentioning that the 23rd of May 2023 is the deadline for member associations to submit their final bid, including all bidding and hosting documents. To this end, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself and good night.